Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, Week 12 injury report, and coming up a little bit later on, DJ Jazzy Geoff Ulrich will be on the line to break down the FanShare Sports Sentiment rankings to see who's going to be the chalk of Sunday at each position and where you might be able to pivot onto. Don't be afraid to give the episode a like either, and if you're looking for my updated rankings and updated Week 12 DraftKings cheat sheet, just go to dkplaybook.com. I will update both Friday night, again Saturday, and then again Sunday morning. Plus, we're going to be live Sunday morning at 11 a.m. on the DraftKings Facebook page, taking all your questions, getting you ready where you're still dealing with a turkey hangover, or just a regular hangover. Either one. Come on by. All right, let's get into the injuries because there was a lot of big news that actually happened on Friday. And I don't think that people are paying as much attention right now because a lot of the writers are off, a lot of the beat guys are off, and people just don't give a shit right now either. So the big news coming out of Jacksonville is that Jalen Ramsey and Allen Hurns are not going to play Sunday in Arizona. So what does that mean for everything? Well, the awesome pass defense of the Jacksonville Jaguars does take a hit a little bit, but there's one little problem with all of it. I really liked Larry Fitzgerald this week. I thought he was an excellent contrarian play in that upper price range because a lot of people just looked and said, hey, you know what? There's a big red number next to Larry Fitzgerald's name. Jacksonville is so good against the pass, and they are, but I was willing to take the chance that A.J. Boye and Jalen Ramsey would not venture into the slot, and Larry Fitzgerald would just soak up like 15 targets because it was the only pass on the field that Blaine Gabbert was able to make. Now, I think a little bit more of the public is going to be on that move now. Maybe there. I don't know. They probably won't even realize Jalen Ramsey's out, but he jammed his hand in practice, so he's not playing, and the ankle injury with Allen Hurns opens up a little bit of room for D.D. Westbrook to continue to see his role grow. I would expect Marquise Lee to play a bit on the outside, a bit in the slot, but Keelan Cole, wide receiver twos, have been dominating Arizona so far this season, and I guess really the big thing is, who do you think that Patrick Peterson is going to be on? Is it going to be Lee? Is it going to be Westbrook? Is it going to be Cole? I really doubt he ends up on Keelan Cole in this matchup. $3,400 on DraftKings. I'm not saying go overweight on Keelan Cole. I'm not saying use him in a cash game. But if you're playing multiple entries this week, he's someone that's going to be incredibly low owned and actually has quite a decent upside, at least 5 targets in each of his last 3 games, and he's a big play guy. You look at his catch average for the year, it's up in the 20s. This guy has an incredibly high ADOT, and if there's going to be a play to be made, he could sneak behind this defense. But then you're relying on Blake Bortles to actually hit him in stride down the field, and things become a bit more problematic. But hey, maybe we get lucky this week. Only $3,400, Keelan Cole. More news coming out of Friday. Juju Smith-Schuster, and this is a big relief, who's dealing with a hamstring problem all week, but he's been officially ruled out for the Sunday night game against Green Bay. This means more to season-long players than it does DraftKings players, although on the primetime slate, you can now consolidate if you're going to use some of the Pittsburgh passing options because he's not going to be there. Obviously, Martavis Bryant not going to be super sneaky anymore, although I wouldn't put all the faith in the world into Martavis Bryant. You know he can burn you. You know he's going to go either for a really big play or do absolutely nothing. In all honesty, this could be more for if Vance McDonald ends up playing, could be more for him, more for Jesse James, could be more for Eli Rogers, but I would just bank on the fact that Brown and Bell just get used even more than they normally do. Martavis Bryant definitely worth a flyer, but don't expect him to be putting up 25 points for you. It's going to be 25 or it's going to be like 2. So know that going in, but no Juju Smith-Schuster. And again, it's a big relief not having to go into the early games and the afternoon games and not knowing what his status is. Now, it'd be great if we knew before Thanksgiving. Obviously, we didn't. Now we do. But you can take him out of your lineups comfortably and actually get people from that 1 o'clock slate into your lineups and make sure that everything is okay. More guys that have already been declared out in terms of Sunday. We're looking at Mike Tolbert, so more LaShawn McCoy. We saw how that benefited him last week. Travaris Cadet played a lot of snaps, but when it came time to score, LaShawn McCoy was the one on the field. Smoking Jay Cutler. Going to have plenty of time for cigs on the sidelines. He's dealing with a concussion. As someone who smokes, you know, your first cig of the day, if you haven't had a cig in like 14 hours, gives you a head rush anyway. I mean, that's probably not helping his concussion problems right now. Matt Moore's going to start. He loves Kenny Stills. You would think the Patriots would go out of their way to take out Kenny Stills, but they probably don't even care. They're 16.5-point favorites. I would play Kenny Stills. Jarvis Landry might have a good PPR base. Maybe he can sneak into the end zone, but I don't really love him as an upside play. Devontae Parker does not have that same rapport with Matt Moore. He could go off here if he gets to be the sort of the player on the Dolphins offense that gets just ignored by the Patriots, although I would find that hard to believe because he probably is the most talented and biggest body of any of those receivers. Last guy who's already been declared out, John Brown, dealing with a toe injury, and we talked about Larry Fitzgerald a little bit earlier, probably just means a more consolidation of targets towards everyone else in that passing game, including a slight uptick in market share for Larry Fitzgerald. All great news. Guys that are doubtful for Week 12, and this one kind of came midweek, and then he didn't practice on Friday, but it doesn't look like we're going to see Rashard Matthews at all Sunday against the Colts, which is an extremely good matchup. I am going to vault Corey Davis way up the rankings when you can check out the update on DKPlaybook.com. Plus, I'm going to add him to my cash game sheet. He's a very good price on DraftKings this week. I think you can use him in cash. I think you can use him in tournaments. The volume has been there. Everything else hasn't. If when we get to the fan share tags a little bit later on, if people aren't playing Delaney Walker, that might be a way to go. I really like this Titans offense. I really like the Colts offense a little bit better, although removing Rashard Matthews from the equation does allow more targets for Corey Davis, more targets for Eric Decker, and just kind of, when you take someone out, you just have more of an inkling of where the ball is going to go. And we know that on the Indianapolis side of the ball. Brissett's past concussion protocol, he's playing. He only throws to T.Y. Hilton and Jack Doyle. Sometimes when coverage gets broken, Chester Taylor can venture downfield or Dante Moncrief, but that is an honest-to-God crapshoot. But I think when you're thinking about market share, Hilton and Doyle should make up around 50% of the receiving market share this week for Indianapolis. So I really like that game stack, weirdly enough, when it comes to a game hitting the over that maybe you don't expect. Two bad defenses going at it, and I would take DeMarco Murray over Derrick Henry. More guys that are doubtful right now. Martellus Bennett doesn't look like he's going to play, as won't Chris Hogan, both with shoulder injuries for the Patriots. Just another Brandon Cook smash spot. Go nuts. Devontae Freeman and his concussion got in a limited work on Friday. However, he was behind Tevin Coleman. He was behind Taron Ward. This is an early game, so we're going to know if Freeman doesn't play all the Coleman in the world. I don't think he's going to play. Beat reporters from Atlanta don't think that he's going to play either. I think they can win this game without him, and you got to get him healthy if you're actually going to go on a run. If you look at Atlanta's schedule, it's incredibly tough coming down the stretch, and they need all those wins. But they need this win too, so it's kind of crazy to think that you could sit out Devontae Freeman. You got to get that guy healthy. If he doesn't play, use Tevin Coleman everywhere. Cash games, tournaments, your season-long lineups. He's in a great situation against the Bucs this week. More guys. Kelvin Benjamin probably not going to play. Jordan Matthews probably will play, as will Charles Clay, so it's a Bills offense. Who cares? Ty Montgomery and his rib problems, he's probably going to miss Week 12 as well. That's a Sunday night game, so we're not going to know late. But if you're counting on Jamal Williams, he's looking like someone who can get 15 to 20 touches. A good running back to start, even in a tough matchup, just because of volume. Will Fuller probably won't play Monday night, which means more Bruce of Ellington on the Monday night game, and with Jimmy Smith locking everyone down, probably won't lock down DeAndre Hopkins, but wide receiver twos can find some penetration up against the Ravens defense. So Bruce Ellington becomes a sneaky PPR play there. Josh Bellamy will not play for the Bears with a concussion. Guys that are questionable for Week 12, Josh Bellamy's teammate, Dontrell Inman, and his groin will get in. He's been used the last 2 weeks with Trubisky against the Eagles, being almost 14-point underdogs. You'd expect a lot of passing. I actually think that game stays a little bit closer than others, but if you just go by what Vegas is telling you, Dontrell Inman could be in for a really good market share this week. Not trustworthy, but someone that could really go off. Good long. He runs a lot of very, very short routes, good for PPR, and he can get himself downfield. He doesn't run a lot of whole mid-range routes. He's a very tiny fella. So he's going to use his speed to get behind the defense, or they're going to run bubble screens to him. Either way, he's sort of like the poor man's Tyreek Hill right now, except he doesn't return punts. Emmanuel Sanders has been on the injury report like the last 5 weeks with an ankle injury. Paxton Lynch is starting for Denver this week. I like Demaryius more than Sanders. I get why Sanders can be talked up. Very crisp route runner. DT is more of a guy, get the ball in his hands and make him do something. I like DT a little bit more, but I think that you can play both of them against this porous Oakland secondary. Matt Forte, who I did not think was going to be playing this week, looks as if he is going to be a game-time decision against Carolina. It's a bad matchup, but if he is active, it's hard to trust any of the New York Jets running back. I had previously liked McGuire over Powell, but I think if Forte gets injected back into the mix, I'm not even sure how much he's going to play, but I would go Forte, McGuire, and Powell, and I would go out of my way to try not to play any of them this week against Carolina. Pray to God you have better options. Rob Gronkowski with his illness, gonna play. Charles Clay and Jordan Matthews both gonna play for the Bills. Someone in that offense you feel like can take advantage of the bad Chiefs secondary. I have no idea who it's gonna be, though. It's week to week to week with all these guys. Greg Olsen activated off IR with his foot injury. Not sure if he's on a snap count or not. There's been no reports of that. But with the way that tight end's been going, he's a top 10 play this week just because of who he is and what he does in that offense and how much market share he gets. And finally, we never talk about kickers on the show because frankly I don't care, but Jake Elliott has passed concussion protocol and it looks like he will be on the field against the Chicago Bears at home. It's worth noting because he's one of the best kickers. If you play in a league with kickers and you were waiting to hear about Jake Elliott, or you'd picked up a backup kicker, you could use that bench space to pick up James Conner or pick up Austin Eckler or whoever. You don't need to carry 2 kickers if you have Jake Elliott because he is going to play this week against Chicago. Coming up now to talk about the DraftKings ownership of the week and some of these contentious situations and maybe some injuries have allowed you to save a little bit money on the salary cap. It's Geoff Ulrich from DKPlaybook.com and DKTV. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the Pat Mayo Experience, bringing in from DKTV and DKPlaybook.com. It is DJ Jazzy Geoff Ulrich. What's happening?
Not much. Just trying to recover from this Thanksgiving beatdown I just took.
Yeah, well, listen, we run a 4-man every single week when we do our matchups breakdown show, which airs every Thursday. It didn't yesterday because it was Thanksgiving, but every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Facebook page, me, you, Pierce, and Kaufman all play a tournament against each other with weird rules. But this week was actually like standard rules, just play the Thanksgiving slate. I wiped the floor with the lot of you. I needed some points in those standings after being dead last.
Yeah, I'm on a bit of a cold streak here. This is my second loss in a row. It's a little bit embarrassing. I can't even beat Kaufman, but you definitely had the sharp lineup with Case Keenum and going Rudolph at tight end. I mean, we were talking off the top, but the Giants' offense is not something you want to be overly targeting, I think, going forward.
No, I mean, I actually think that Evan Ingram will be fine when Sterling Shepard plays, but as soon as Sterling Shepard isn't around, I mean, then Evan Ingram forgets how to catch the ball. It's like he lubes up his hands instead of using stickum on his gloves, but the attention that he gets from the opposing defense when Shepard's not out there is really troublesome.
Yeah, it's a situation to monitor going forward. I agree. Once Shepard gets back, things could change, though, but that was an ugly game. You definitely had the sharp play riding with murder was the case that they gave him there at the start. So kudos to you, Pat.
Well, I mean, the big thing was I only played one lineup for the Thanksgiving slate, and that's how it made its way into that contest. Usually I would create my own because we play with stupid rules. But I wanted to fade Vernon Davis because I was only playing one lineup, and I knew that he was going to be like the highest price guy or highest owned guy of the week. And I was like, you know what, if Vernon Davis goes off and I don't have him, I'm going to lose, whatever. But if he doesn't go off, I basically win. And I had a strategy like I do for every either primetime slate or especially the Thanksgiving slate is just target the first game because you can always just late swap off of it and go to the chalk if you hit early. The problem was I hit all my Vikings, but the Lions I used were not the right Lions.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting game. I mean, I think that was actually the good game to target. You had two pretty good offenses going at each other, and you knew it was going to be a highly competitive game since they're going for the division title and stuff like that. But it's definitely a slate where you got to keep an eye on it all day because there is late swap opportunities, like you said. So it's always one of the funnest slates of the year for me. It didn't work out for me very good this year, but it is. I wish we had more of those, quite frankly, because they are fun to watch.
All right, let's get into the FanShare Sports Sentiment Rankings for Week 12 on the Sunday main slate. You can check out my updated cheat sheet up on DKPlaybook.com. I'll do that sometime Friday night and update it every day up until kickoff on Sunday after we do matchups breakdown for the Sunday edition, which is at 11 a.m. Eastern time on the DraftKings Facebook page where we just go over the latest injuries, the actives, take your questions on, boom, I go update and everything is solved. So you probably want to reserve some stuff before you get into that. But again, FanshareSports.com, free to sign up, and you can check out their sentiment rankings. I'm going to sort by tags by each position, and let's knock it off first. Kareem Hunt is the super chalk of the week. 24 start tags for the Kansas City running back who hasn't scored a touchdown in like 3 months, but he has the best matchup he gonna get up against the Buffalo Bills, who have just been sieves on defense in the running game since they got rid of Marcel Darius. Tevin Coleman is next. J.D. McKissick, Todd Gurley, Mark Ingram, then Alvin Kamara comes in. He's quickly followed by Devontae Booker, Deion Lewis, Christian McCaffrey, and then LaShawn McCoy. So the first one I want to bring up, who didn't make the top 10, but I bet you by the time it gets around to Sunday that he's going to be he's going to be one of the top 10 highest owned running backs, is Duke Johnson. Cleveland came out today, and they said they want to get Duke Johnson on the field almost like a full-time workhorse back. He's only $4,600. And when I was thinking about paying down for cash games this week, I was thinking either McKissick or even Frank Gore, who's really getting no love but gets like double-digit touches every week up against Tennessee. Like, he's the ultimate like cheap cash game guy. He's never going to hit a ceiling because the ceiling's like 15 points, but he could get there. But I really like Duke Johnson here. The last time he played the Bengals, 9 catches on 10 targets back in week 5. And if he's actually going to be, he's been playing more than Isaiah Crowell anyway in terms of snap count, and if this is a game where he could be on the field like 70% of the time, they're 7.5-point dogs here. They could be throwing a ton, and he could just soak it all. Like, just based on what he does in the receiving game, he could pay off 3x his price very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, Duke Johnson was the guy I definitely had my eye on before because, like you said, the other thing is DeShone Kizer loves throwing to Duke Johnson. Like, he's worked the best with DeShone Kizer out of all these scrub quarterbacks, so that's good to see. You always like getting some coach speak. It doesn't always work out, but I think in this case, like you said, Duke Johnson's already on the field over 50% of it, or close to 50% of the time, if not over. So if they want to use him more, great. I mean, even he's not really an every down running back, but if they're going to give him a few more carries, it only adds to his floor, adds to his upside. So I agree. I think that he's probably going to get more popular as the week goes on, which sucks for tournaments. But I think cash games, I know people are, looking at McIsaac and stuff like that. And you mentioned Gore, and the old guys for cash games are fine. I think Duke's a good cash game play this week for sure. I think the game flow is going to be in his favor. Like we said, he's already good for PPR. So I will say this: I think going to the other side of that game with Joe Mixon and GPPs, it might be where it's at. They're the ones who are 8-point favorites. Mixon's still getting 22 carries. I know Cincinnati's so brutal at running the ball, but I feel like that might be the play, to be frank, because I think Joe Mixon eventually is going to pound in a couple touchdowns.
Weirdly enough, Joe Mixon is 26th at running back in sentiment ranking this week, which I find kind of shocking because that $4,000 range is just full with a whole bunch of committees. So, like, Dion Lewis is below $5,000, but if it's a Rex Burkhead week, no one's going to be stunned. Or if it's a James White week, that's not shocking. Hey, all of a sudden, Mike Gillisley is active, and he scores 3 touchdowns. He's Jonas Grade 3.0 now for the Patriots. Like, there's so many situations in that range where you just don't know where it's going to fall. I guess Duke Johnson kind of falls into that a little bit, but I feel more confident that he's going to see the playing time. Mixon is the only one that we know is going to be on the field and get all the touches.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the whole point. I mean, and they're playing the Browns, right? Like, it's not like, I know the Browns have a pretty good run defense, but they've had a pretty good run defense all year, and they keep giving up tons of points every week. So I think this is a great time to deploy him in GPPs. Completely agree with you on Duke Johnson, though. I mean, this guy's got a great floor this week. I think cash games, you'd be wise to look his way. And I would target Duke Johnson over Mixon in cash games. But I think GPPs, I think Mixon is where it's at for me right now. I do like Devontae Booker, too. People are going to get too high on J.D. McIsaac. I think that whole Seattle running back situation is a fade, quite frankly, although McIsaac is the guy I would look to. I think Devontae Booker is in potentially a better spot. Another guy's getting some coach speak.
Well, I mean, McKissick has 14 start tags. I like where he's going here. Like, Mike Davis looked like he could sort of be a wrench in these problems, but he's not going to play due to a groin injury. So Rawls will be activated. We know Lacey sucks. My biggest problem here is, like, I think he's a smart fade if he gets up to like 10-15%, just because there are other guys with equivalent upside right around his price. They're going to be like 1/5 the ownership. Even someone like Mixon, who we know is guaranteed to get the touches. So with McKissick, you know that he's not guaranteed to get even goal line touches in this game. You hope that he has sort of like the Duke Johnson thing where he gets a ton of receptions, but I always worry about the Seahawks offense in these division games. Call me crazy. I know it's San Francisco and they're no good, but like we saw this game earlier this season, the Seahawks can only score 12 points.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Seattle's very capable of laying an egg. And I mean, we'll talk about Russell Wilson later, but the other thing about McIsaac is he's not going to
McKissick! His name is McKissick!
I used to know this girl whose last name was McIsaac. That's probably why. But anyways, McKissick, whatever. Okay, J.D. McKissick, he's not going to get the goal line carries. At least Devontae Booker, I know he's in a timeshare. He's potentially could get some goal line carries. So I just think Booker's upside is better. And people can go to McKissick or whatever you want to call him. But I think Booker, for me, if he's going to be lower on 100%, that's where I'd go.
All right, I got my two favorite pivot plays at running back this week. They're getting no press whatsoever, and I get why one of them isn't being talked up. The other one, just I can't wrap my mind around it. Maybe it's because everyone is going to use Kareem Hunt, but Leonard Fournette is 31st in running back start tags this week. That makes no sense to me. People are worried. Like, he got taken off the injury report with his ankle injury on Friday, but I'm still getting these questions like, oh, do you think that Leonard Fournette can handle a full workload? He was hurt last week and had over 25 carries. And now, you mentioned it earlier, the Browns' run defense is actually pretty good. Arizona's run defense, not so hot.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was worried about the cold last week. Leonard Fournette put up like 17 yards when he played in the cold in college, and then he put up 28 carries and over 100 yards on one ankle. So he's off the injury report. He's going to be indoors in a nice, cozy, warm stadium against a team that pretty much is out of it now and, quite frankly, wasn't playing good before. I'm 100% all over Leonard Fournette this week. I love the way this guy's looked, quite frankly. I think that he's always getting stacked boxes, and he's producing against them anyways. If we see him against some of these shoddy teams that have kind of given up, I think some massive games are coming. I know the ankle is still a little bit of a worry, but, yeah, I agree 100%. I was hoping Kareem Hunt might get, not so much love because he didn't really produce last week in a good spot, but it doesn't appear that way, so I think Fournette, though, I'm 100% on board. Like the player a lot, and I like the spot.
If Devonta Freeman doesn't play, just smash Kevin Coleman tournament's cash game. Doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. I will say this. The Atlanta running back usage isn't as good as it was last year. We've seen Devonta Freeman at this price not produce. Now, obviously, that's with Kevin Coleman playing beside him. So I don't think it's a lock for tournaments, but cash games, yeah, it makes a ton of sense. It's a way better matchup than last week, so I like Tevin Coleman too. Like I said, I wish he was 5,900 or something, but it's kind of just being a little bit picky. It's still a really good spot.
All right, the other guy that I like as a contrarian play this week in a really... Remember there was 5 weeks in a row we just said, hey, play running backs against Indianapolis because they suck at stopping the run. But now no one doesn't do that anymore, and now you're dealing with this situation with DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry where no one can really figure out what week to week to do. So don't use them in cash games because there's really no floor to speak of. It could just shift the other way. But I really like DeMarco Murray. He's at a suppressed price. No one's using him, and he has the tits matchup.
Yeah, oh man, DeMarco Murray's looked bad at times this year. I want to get behind it. I really like that idea, and I just feel like maybe he's playing with an injury because he's looked so bad, or maybe he's just the wheels are falling off because it's high usage in Dallas. But he has not looked good this year, so I love the spot. I think tournaments, that's fine. It's not a guy I would get too high on, but I agree, it's a good spot. I mean, stacking Mariota and DeMarco in a tournament lineup or something, or just using DeMarco alone is interesting. I mean, he's only 5,200. If he gets going, I mean, it's potential for a big game. So I do kind of like Carlos Hyde there too. He's produced against some good run defenses. I know it's bad, but he's had good games against Seattle before too. I would probably lean Hyde just because I think he's a better player at this point. But I agree. There's some interest in DeMarco from me there too.
I think for me the difference between the two would come down to who do I think that if you told me they had a 40-point game, which one would it be? And I think the answer to that is DeMarco Murray. He's also by far the one who's most likely to score a 2-point game, although he has been used in the receiving game more the last 2 weeks, 4 catches and 5 catches the last 2 games, and that's really helping establish a little bit of floor. I know Carlos Hyde is just being used in the passing game over and over and over, and you're right, he has had some good games up against Seattle in the past, but I think about that game, I'm going to be using a lot of the Colt stack, the triple stack between Doyle, Hilton, and Brissett. I think coming back the other way with DeMarco Murray and just pray that's how the Titans score their points is through him. I think that's the move that is a contrarian play for tournaments. And I'm not saying if you play a single entry, do that move. It's very risky, but if you're playing 10, 15 lineups, why not throw 2 of those in?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's kind of where I'd be at, 5%, 10%. You're going to be way above the field with that, so it's not like you have to go nuts, but it's an interesting spot because the other thing is Rashard Matthews looks like he's not going to play, so that probably bumps up Murray's PPR total a bit too.
Yeah, well, let's move to wide receivers right now because as of this moment, Corey Davis is not listed inside the top 10 most startable wide receivers of the week, but you'd have to figure that's going to change, right?
Absolutely. I mean, Rashard Matthews came down with an in-week injury to his hamstring, I believe. Didn't practice today. He looks very questionable. I will say this, the Titans have had a history of DeMarco Murray missing practice and then starting. So don't just completely rule Rashard Matthews out. There's still a possibility he comes back and plays, and maybe not 100%, but he's in there, which would bump Davis down a bit. But even if Matthews is limited, you got to like the upside for Davis in this matchup. So I agree Corey Davis is going to get chalky as we go into the weekend here, but people just might not be willing to trust Mariota in the passing game that much. So I love the spot, quite frankly, and I hope Rashard doesn't play this week because it just makes it easier. It condenses the targets. It means Corey Davis is pretty much going to have to be their go-to guy with Delaney Walker, but Delaney's going to get his regardless. So I think it's a great spot. We'll see how chalky he gets, but even if he's pushing 10-15%, I still think he's a really good play.
Taiwan Taylor is down at $3,000. Then you have Eric Decker at $3,500. If Matthews misses, do you have interest in those guys?
Taiwan Taylor, yes. Eric Decker, I don't know. He just doesn't have the same he used to. He just has not looked really good this year. Yeah, he could come through with like 6 catches and 80 yards and maybe get in the end zone, but I feel like that's his absolute, ceiling. I feel like Taiwan Taylor's the guy they might try and get a little bit more involved. He's the guy who could probably pop off like a 50-yard touchdown, which he's kind of done in the past. So I think I'd have more interest in him.
And he's cheaper, too. That's always nice. Yeah. And he's lesser known, so therefore his ownership is going to be even lower. In terms of actual sentiment start rankings at receiver this week, weirdly enough, Mohamed Sanu comes in at number 1. 18 start tags. Julio Jones is number 2 with 16. Then it's Cooper Kupp, Doug Baldwin, T.Y. Hilton, Kenny Stills with Matt Moore playing. And then we're going to get down into who's next on this list here. Let's see. Oh, Rashard Matthews was at that spot, but obviously he's probably not going to play. Corey Davis, Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, who's looked like he's going to play with the ankle injury, A.J. Green, Alshon Jeffrey. Are there any pivots from that top end that you really like? Because no one's really talking up Tyreek Hill at all. And listen, I feel like we kind of are a broken record when it comes to Tyreek Hill, but I feel like you just play him every week because one of these weeks he's going to be 8 for 165 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, and he never really kills. I know he killed you last week, but that was a weird win game. Like, he could really go off here, and getting like 2% Tyreek is always the Tyreek that you want.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't have to talk me into Tyreek Hill. I mean, I love, going after him, especially when he's like 5% owned. And he wasn't that bad last week. He was actually the only cheap. Well, actually, Kelsey was okay too, but he still produced like 14 points. And as the Chiefs kind of like spiral downwards and they can't create offense, it's only going to mean more touches for Tyreek Hill because Andy Reid's just got to get him the ball. I don't know why he's not getting like 10 touches a game already, but he's the guy who can break a big one for them and can really get that offense going. So I think it's a great spot for him. 100% agree. I think the other guy you look for there is Michael Thomas. I think that the Rams can definitely take it to the Saints a little bit. I think they're going to be able to score. Marshawn Lattimore is probably not going to play. It's only going to increase the Rams' ability to score. They're actually favorites in this game. You can pass on the Rams. I mean, they have one decent cornerback in Trumaine Johnson. He's not a shutdown cornerback. If the Saints do have to come back in this game, I know Kamara will get involved. I know they'll pass to the running backs, but Michael Thomas is going to be like 2% on too. I think that's a good way to come back.
Weirdly enough, do you know who is 46th in start tags for Week 12 at receiver?
I do not.
Mike Evans.
Mike Evans, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, no one's going to play him. I mean, everyone's just going to 100% not trust Ryan Fitzpatrick. But again, if you like Tevin Coleman, why not play Mike Evans on the other side, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be one of these situations where I think I'm going to start building a whole bunch of lineups at the top. I like the Michael Thomas call, too, that I might just go like Fournette Evans instead of going Kareem Hunt and whoever else, A.J. Green. I feel like those two lineups have a similar upside and close to the same probability of hitting. Yeah, Kareem Hunt's in a better spot, but Fournette's just better. And, I mean, A.J. Green's not in a great spot against Cleveland. I mean, if he gets stuck on McCourty might shut him down.
Might shut him down, or since he just might get a pick six and the game flow just might be horrible for him, right? He might end up with like five catches. So, there's lots of ways A.J. Green can bust. Mike Evans is the guy who potentially could see the 15 target game, whereas I don't really see that working out for A.J. Green necessarily. I mean, it could happen, but I agree. I mean, I feel like A.J. Green's got as much bust potential as any of those top guys. So Talking about lower ownership, I think Mike Thomas, I think Mike Evans, both definitely guys you can consider. Agree 100% on Hunt going back again. I mean, Fournette's the better player. You get him at way lower ownership.
So I really like T.Y. Hilton. I don't care how chalky he gets. Just he's the sort of player that if he has one of these T.Y. Hilton weeks and you don't have him, you don't win. So I'm going to make sure to have some T.Y. Hilton. And probably what's his best matchup of the year at home against Tennessee. Usually you just don't play Hilton on the road. Frankly, like when he was in Tennessee earlier this season, didn't do anything. I trust him a little bit more at home, so I love him. But the contrarian plays all the way down the list, or at least the pivots, I still really like Devin Funchess. I just think he's in such a great spot. And now people don't really want to use him with Greg Olsen coming back. Oh, Claiborne's going to shut him down. No, he's not. Like, let's be real here. It's going to be like 8 targets for Devin Funchess. 3 are going to be in the red zone. He's a pretty good price and no one's using him. I like him. I spoke earlier in the show before you got on, Geoff, about Larry Fitzgerald. With Jalen Ramsey being out, there's no chance that Boye follows him into the slot, so he could just be 15 targets because that's the only passing play that they have. And they are 5.5-point dogs at home. I really like him. And the other one, weirdly enough, Demaryius Thomas. Emmanuel Sanders is actually getting some buzz with Paxton Lynch, but against the Raiders, if you give me DT, I mean, he's been good with Brock Osweiler. If Paxton Lynch can be better than Brock Osweiler, which is not asking all that much, DT could go mental here.
I have some interest in the Denver wide receivers, and I kind of agree on Demaryius Thomas. He's been popping up a little bit more recently, playing a little bit better, looks a little bit more interested after really starting the season slow. I agree 100% on Paxton Lynch. He's not going to be worse than Brock Osweiler. I mean, knock on wood, I guess, but like that's pretty hard to do. I mean, I would prefer him over Fitzgerald. I get the thinking on Fitzgerald, and I mean, it could definitely happen. I just never rostered Larry Fitzgerald. Maybe it's just like ageism. I'm waiting for him to retire so he can stop decimating my bankroll every week. But I like Demaryius Thomas. I like the play. I have a little bit of interest in that game in Devontae Booker and Demaryius Thomas. I don't think I'm going to roster Paxton Lynch, although maybe if I like Thomas, I should. But I don't know. The Oakland offense or defense is really bad. Like, I don't think people realize. And, you know, David Amerson's been ruled out again. They got slow corners. Like, it's a good spot. So it comes down to how bad or good Paxton Lynch is going to be. But definitely have some interest there, and they're going to be low owned.
Okay, let's move to quarterbacks now. Russell Wilson, the most talked up quarterback of the week. He is $7,000, 24 start tags. The next closest guy, 15 start tags. My guy, Jacoby Brissett. I love Brissett this week, $5,400. Mariota follows him. Matt Ryan, Andy Dalton, Cam Newton, Tom Brady into, let's see here, who we got? Gonna sort by these stupid start tags again. Oh, Tyrod Taylor, Alex Smith, Ben Roethlisberger in the primetime slate, and Joe Flacco. Let me ask you, since Juju Smith-Schuster has been ruled out, if you're playing in the primetime slate, it feels like everyone will just go to Martavis Bryant. Do you think he's a good fade? Because I do.
Yeah, I mean, he's been inconsistent the entire year. So if he's going to be 30-40% owned or something on that mini slate, I don't want to say he's an easy fade, but he's a pretty easy fade at that percentage, quite frankly. So, yeah, I mean, he could easily catch a long touchdown and do it, but it's not like he's going to get 12 targets or something right off the bat. So, yeah.
All right, so guys I like at quarterback this week. I'm going to fade the Russell Wilson chalk. I'll bite the bullet on that one. Hope it doesn't bite me. I'm going to use Brissett. I just like the price, even if he is chalky. Again, if you combine him with Hilton, if Hilton has one of those games, it means Brissett's going to have one of those games too. So you just kind of roll with him. I think he's a fine cash play. He's actually been incredibly good all season long, at least from a fantasy perspective. I keep referring to him as the rich man's Deshaun Kaiser, and he keeps coming through for us, and he's a really good price. I might eat the chalk on Mariota. I'm not sure about that yet, but I'd rather play Cam Newton. I'd rather play Tom Brady, and a guy that we talked about a little bit earlier in how that Rams passing game and the Saints passing game, that game could shoot out. And I know I went to Goff last week, and he fucked me, but I'm not afraid to go back to him this week. And without Robert Woods there, Watkins and Cooper Kupp could be involved in a triple stack only because, almost like with Rashard Matthews being out, it really concentrates who he can throw to.
Yeah, I like targeting that New Orleans Rams game for some contrarian picks and stuff like that. Obviously, you know, it's tough to fade Tom Brady this week. It's the exact same spot as last week. It's hard to see him getting less than 25 points. Like, it really is. So paying up, I think, is fine. I think I'd trust paying up in a cash game lineup. I know it's tough, but it just feels like you're getting guaranteed points. So I think I'm pretty much on board with fading Russell Wilson at high ownership and going to Goff for the Ram stack or something makes a lot of sense. I like Sammy Watkins. We didn't really talk about him in the wide receiver, but if you are going to target one Rams wide receiver, it's Watkins for me. Cooper Kupp, he gets those red zone targets, but man, he has dropped some ball. Like, he has not played that great this year. He's cost the Rams a couple wins, quite frankly. So I think this is a spot. It's kind of make or break for Watkins, but with no Lattimore, could be the big week that everyone's finally expecting. So how chalky do you think Marcus Mariota is going to be?
I think that he'll be top 5 in terms of ownership at quarterback. It could get up even higher than that.
Yeah, I still have belief in Marcus Mariota. He hasn't played well the last 2 weeks, but he's still putting up like an average of 20 points. If he finally has that one clean game, I feel like you're going to see like a 25, 28, maybe over 30. So, and it's a good matchup. I think the next couple weeks I'm on him, but I understand people fading him because there's a lot of interesting cheap options this week. He's not going to be like super contrarian or anything like that. And like I said, you can just pay up for Brady and get the guaranteed points. That being said, I like Mariota this week. I think, like I said, he's got a nice floor, the upside we just haven't seen yet. So, yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on quarterback. Like I said, Jared Goff, Drew Brees, interesting game stack there. I don't know. Is there any interest in like the min-price guys, Paxton Lynch?
Lynch would be the only one, but he's not that much of a discount off Brissett, and I think that people are starting to go towards Paxton Lynch the more the week moves on.
Yeah. What about CJ Beathard?
Yeah, he sucks. I keep telling I know he had Gabbert was a top 10 quarterback last week. Beathard's going to have one of these games, but no, I don't want to play him against Seattle's defense. And I know Seattle's defense is banged up, but no thanks.
I feel like Beathard, Marquise Goodwin might not be bad play.
Why don't you just play Jacoby Brissett? He's way better.
Yeah. It's definitely a real risk of bust playing CJ Beathard because you could see Garoppolo come in that game. So I do have some love for Marquise Goodwin, but yeah, it's probably best just to maybe just use Marquise on his own. Hope he gets that ball.
Tight ends, the most tagged tight end right now is Tyler Kroft. He was taken off the injury report Friday with his hand injury, so he's going to go annihilate the Browns like he did in Week 5. Gotta like Tyler Kroft here. Super good price to it, $3,900. If you want to fade the Tyler Kroft chalk, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense for a guy that doesn't get a whole lot of volume every week. You're relying on touchdowns. If he doesn't score a touchdown, it's a lot like fading tight ends can usually work out if they don't score a touchdown, to be perfectly honest. Yeah. And if he's going to be 30%, I think that's a very logical fade. Jared Cook, Gronk, who's ill, but he's going to play. Jack Doyle, Delaney Walker, Travis Kelce, Greg Olsen, Jimmy Graham, Zach Ertz, Ben Watson. I guess for me, I like Doyle, I like Delaney, but I'm really intrigued by Zach Ertz in this game because through 7 weeks, he was the most consistent tight end there was. Now no one wants to use him anymore. It could be a spot to go back to him.
Yeah, I mean, he's the player who's popping out to me, too. I mean, he's probably going to be the lowest owned of the top 3. I think almost guaranteed. He'll probably be lower owned than Jimmy Graham, too, and Delaney Walker, especially if Matthews doesn't play. So he'll be the player who's under 5% owned of those 5. I do like Rob Gronkowski a lot in this spot, and I know I made some jokes early in the week, but I just feel like, the Patriots are going to score touchdowns, and obviously guessing where they're going to go can be tough, but Miami's really bad at covering tight ends, so they're sneakily one of the worst teams in the league. So I do feel like this is a good double touchdown game for Gronk. That's probably where I'd go if you're just going to eat the chalk. I think Ertz, if you want to get super contrarian, is fine. Going down, yeah, Tyler Kroft's going to be super chalky. I'll probably fade that, although it seems risky to fade. But I still like O.J. Howard in this spot. The Bucs were starting to use him a little bit more last week, 2,600. You really want to get crazy and just say punt tight end. I think going back to him here is interesting because they were starting to use him on purpose last week, on the first couple drives. So it's a very talented tight end. He's got Mike Evans, on the outside to take some coverage away. I feel like maybe we're going to see some consistency out of him eventually.
The only other guy that I'll throw out, if you want to take a massive punt to the position, Austin Traylor is $2,500. And listen, Oakland's defense can be susceptible to everyone, and maybe with Paxton Lynch working with a lot of the third stringers and second stringers throughout the course of the year. Traylor's just been promoted since AJ Derby went away and went on to IR. It doesn't seem like Virgil Green's going to do much. Jeff Heuerman is already banged up. That he saw 5 targets last week with Lynch. That's a very easy throw for him to complete. I could see him doing something. Not a whole bunch, but he could score a touchdown in this spot, so I'll probably use 1 or 2 shares of him, and he's great savings at the position.
Yeah, I'll throw another name out there too. Chicago, Adam Sheehan. Although it looks like Deion Sims might be playing.
Yeah, Deion Sims looks like he's going to play.
Okay, yeah, so it takes away a bit. He has some connection with Trubisky, but I think I'd be less inclined to use him at all if Deion Sims was going to play.
All right, let's finish this off very quickly with defenses. The Bengals, number 1, 12 start tags. It seems to be evenly distributed this week at defenses. Because it's funny, because my 2 favorite defenses of the week, the Steelers and Ravens, are not on the main slate, so that sucks. But it's the Bengals, Patriots, Jags, Eagles, Falcons, Panthers, and then it gets into, let's see here, the Saints, the Raiders somehow. I'd rather the Broncos than the Raiders. The Titans, the Rams, the Browns. The Browns aren't actually a terrible punt defense up against Andy Dalton, but I really like Philly. I like Jacksonville, but I think if you're looking for the lower-owned defense, take Carolina on the road against the Jets. They have a top 10 pass rush up against a bottom 10 offensive line. One of the only other teams that fits that profile on the main slate, the Bears against the Eagles. I know they're 14-point dogs, but I think they're going to be able to get to Carson Wentz, at least in terms of sacks, and that could just create a score.
I was going to bring him up. I mean, it's a little bit wild, obviously, considering how many points the Eagles score every week now, but I agree. They still give up sacks to Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz under pressure, he hasn't been doing it lately, but he can still throw a pick or 2. I mean, it's not out of the question. So it's obviously just about price. I mean, 2,100, you're saving so much money. You get 14 points from these guys. It's unbelievable. So there was another one down there I kind of wanted to throw out. It was not the Browns, maybe the Rams, kind of similar. I don't love it. I actually think I like the Bears more, but the Rams are home favorites. So you're getting them really cheap. They put up some big games before. Another defense to think about. I don't really like that many cheap defenses. Usually I can talk myself into a cheap defense or 2, but I'm having a hard time this week. And, the Bears are GPP, but I still want to have too much, exposure to them.
Yeah, I think in cash, you could just use the Eagles or you could use the Panthers and you'll be fine.
I will say this. Broncos D, it's a division game. Oakland has been so bad. I feel like Denver, before the year ends, will have at least one big defensive game. So I kind of like them for GPPs too. And again, division game. I know Denver's kind of looking out of it right now, but they should be able to get up for this one.
All right, Geoff Ulrich, check him out on DKTV and the DKPlaybook.com. Plus, follow him on Twitter at @TheFantasyGrind. Before we go, let everyone know what you're doing with fantasy golf metrics too, if people care about golf, like I do.
Yeah, no, obviously the guys at Fantasy Golf Metrics, they're, getting ready to relaunch their site. It's going to be awesome. Ton of interesting fantasy golf tools. There's going to be one and done contests that you can run on your own on the site. You're also going to be able to listen to me and read some of my own content. I'm going to be doing content on there for them, working with the guys. So it's going to be exciting, and obviously looking forward to, the new golf season with what you got going on there too at Fantasy Golf National Pad. It's gonna be exciting. I like all these new golf sites coming up. It's just good for fantasy golf in general.
Yeah, well, I mean, Fantasy Golf is back first week of January. You want to give a Christmas gift out? Give someone the gift of FantasyNational.com. Yearly subscriptions. It paid off for everyone 2 weeks ago. Everyone won more than the subscription. So it's a free roll from the rest of the season. It was fantastic. Anyway, I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at ThePME on Twitter. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Audio Boom for the audio versions, and the DraftKings YouTube page for the video versions. All my content will be updated through Sunday on DKPlaybook.com as well. I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck in Week 12. I'll see you next time.